In this video, we're going to look at the Global Master Effects section and some simple automation. Now, we've seen how send effects are used, where we dial in an amount from each of the instruments in the slots, and we adjust the return level here and here. Global Master Effects are effects that influence the entire brass section all at once, and we cannot affect the individual instruments with it. So it's a way of processing the whole ensemble. And we have 5 different modules that we can each turn on and off with these buttons over here. We have compression, and this works the same way that we saw on the individual instruments with the compressor module there, but this influences them all together, where we set a threshold, and when it crosses it, it reduces the level based on the ratio that you have set, and we adjust the attack and release there, makeup gain, and blend in the compressed and uncompressed signal there. Similarly with EQ, we can influence the overall EQ of the entire section with these, and these bands work the same as we saw before. But there are a couple of new modules here. We have a tape saturation module, and this is really interesting. It adds a kind of harmonic distortion saturation to the signal when we drive the input gain, and the warmth knob, when we press this or dial it up, adds a bit more kind of low-end saturation. And if you dial it up too much, you're going to hear some distortion the way you would in the real world when you overdrive analog tape. We have a high-frequency roll-off knob, which, as you would expect, rolls off some of the higher frequencies the more you dial this up. And we have an output level, and with this and the twang modules here, we have to be mindful of the input and output level, because this influences the overall output of the entire brass section. So if this is all the way down, you'll actually effectively be shutting off your dry signal, and you'll hear only the reverb return. I'll give you a quick example. So we're only hearing the send effects there. So we know what the comp and the EQ sound like. Let's explore this. As I drive the gain, I'm going to turn the output down a bit. As I drive the gain, you'll hear it introduce some distortion, and I'll push a little more than ideal just so you can hear the type of distortion that happens when you do use it to too much of an extreme level. So that's obviously way too much. It doesn't sound very nice. But a little bit of it can add a nice bit of low-end thickness. Let me just balance the output so we're not getting distracted by volume, and I'll A/B it on and off. So it adds a little nice something something. I'm going to dial that down a bit. Now, twang is kind of like an amplifier stage, and it's like using a guitar amp, where you can, again, drive the input and the output here. And again, you have to be mindful because this is affecting your overall signal flow of the whole section. But we can amplify or boost the bass, mids, and trebles the way you can on an amplifier. And again, it'll shape the frequency response in a much broader way than the EQ module will. So it's a way of sort of adding a bit of balance at the final stage of the overall ensemble sound. And we have a low-pass filter, and this is really interesting for getting a kind of wah-wah effect. And you'll notice that when I turn it on, the controls don't become immediately visible. We need to actually click on the name over there for the controls. So we set the cutoff frequency over here where it's going to filter the frequencies at, and then we can boost right at the cutoff point and create a kind of feedback with this. So when you move that parameter, you get a really interesting kind of wah-wah effect, not a natural brass sound, but nonetheless an interesting effect that you may want to explore. And it's interesting to automate this parameter. Of course, all the parameters in Session Horns Pro are automatable in your DAW. And let's look at doing it. We can enable in the browser here in Contact in Automation view. We'll see that all the main parameters are already assigned. And if I look here, I'll see that the cutoff frequency is assigned, the master low pass cutoff is assigned to 54. So what I can do is automate that parameter in my DAW, and if we turn on automation, we'll see here that we get all the contact parameters, and these are the unnamed ones. And I've got to scroll all the way down to the bottom to get to the ones that are assigned. And it's kind of cumbersome, and I'll show you an easier way of doing it. And most DAWs have this kind of functionality, but let me just show you where they are. I'm scrolling down with my mouse wheel, and it's a long list. I think there's 512 parameters altogether, so we need to get down to the bottom. And scrolling, there we go. So here we go. They're not numbered, but they're named, and I'm looking for the master. Here we go, low pass, that's the twang. Here it is, low pass cutoff. This would be the one I want to automate. So here it is, and I can now draw in automation if I want, and we'll see the knob move. But let me undo that. What I prefer to do is just mouse the knob and have it record the movement. So instead of scrolling through that long list, what you can do is just put this in touch or latch mode without worrying about what's selected there for the automation lane, and just hit play and start moving this. And that's what I'm going to do now. Even though this is already selected, it doesn't need to be. So that's a really effective way of creating automation. Let's just play back a little bit and we'll see it move. I'll put this back to read mode. So that's simple automation with Session Horns Pro. This is Eli Kranzberg signing out. I hope you've enjoyed these videos and picked up some tips. I'm having a ball using this plugin in case you haven't figured that out by now. It sounds great and there's lots of creative possibilities. Enjoy, make great music, God bless, and have fun.